top 10 centers in the league. Let's go.
Nikola Jokic.
Speaking of centers, from DeMarcus Cousins.
DeMarcus Cousins is former starter. So how would you guys like to do this? We like to start. I think it's best to start off number 1 on to 10 and 12. Do you want me to start, or would one of you like to take the honor?
Well, I mean, we all know Nikola Jokic is the number 1 center in the league, right?
By far the best rebounder, best passer, best scorer. And I honestly think, hot take here, Karl Anthony Towns said, when I retire, they're going to remember me for changing the game. Let's be honest. Nikola Jokic might be a better shooter than Karl Anthony Towns. Towns has played 3 playoff series in his career. He showed up in 0 of them for his career in the playoffs. And this is coming from a cat guy. He shot 33% from deep. NBA players need delusional confidence. That being said, Jokic in the playoffs is second all-time in three-point percentage at 41%. From mid-range, he is over 50%, and that's his worst. Karl Anthony Towns at 50% is his best. And when you look at the signature shots on AD and LeBron James in the conference finals, somewhere Karl Anthony Towns may never be, I'm sorry, I think you can make a legit case here. Nikola, on top of all of those things, is the best passer or is the best shooter at this position too. Am I crazy to say that?
No. It's not crazy.
Let me look at the. No, he's up there with. I mean, like, yeah. No, yeah. So yeah, but I don't want to make. I mean, listen, we've talked about Nikola Jokic, not nauseating, but we know his skill set. He's the best player in the world. We obviously know that, so obviously he's going to be number 1. I think we all agree on number 2. Now, John might have a little haterade in his system, but no. I feel
There's
like
a clear gap though between 1 and 2.
There it is. He likes to take his jabs at the one Joel Embiid, who is the second best center in the league, I believe.
I agree. I'm just coming off an MVP season too. Yeah.
3 deserving MVP caliber seasons. Now, Jokic may have been the most deserving, but Embiid the last 3 years has been an all-defensive player, and at the same time, oh my God, 31 points per game. That's the highest 3-year peak since we're talking Shaq in 2000. Now, of course, Embiid's play style in the playoffs, it's reliant on a 3-throw shooting, right? He goes to the foul line 12 times per game, where he's an 84% shooter. And so that's like the largest part of his volume. And then also tougher shot making. The issue is, while his play style is very Hakeem Olajuwon-like, he has 0 of the burst and quickness that I shouldn't say 0 because Embiid is quick and he's nimble, but Hakeem was so much more crafty and decisive, and he was able to beat guys and get to the rim a little bit more. In terms of the skill level, though, I think Embiid here is pretty clearly number 2, and then there's a gap between him and number 3. It's just the playoff appearances from him. Like, we do have to acknowledge the best team Embiid has ever beat in the playoffs is the 2022 Raptors. Whereas the third best center for me is Bam Adebayo, who's gone to the finals twice now as number 2.
Wow.
So the third, okay. I'm interested because I wonder if you don't have this guy at center, but I think you do because you got mad at me a couple months ago when I said he was a power forward. My third is I love Bam Adebayo. It's Anthony Davis. I believe Anthony Davis is the third best center.
I didn't have AD, but okay, if you were to have Anthony Davis, guys, I had him above Joel Embiid at number 2.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I did you include Anthony Davis in your centers, Justin? You put him in
power? He's my number 3.
Okay. So then why did you get mad at me a couple months ago, John, when I was saying he was a power forward? You didn't even include him in your centers.
Because he played 100% of his minutes at center. But when I was doing this, fellas, it was a extension of the offseason. In 2022, last year, Davis played more power forward. And so he was just not in my rankings. And so I forgot about him. Okay. He was the one player I just
okay. So you just move everybody down. Then Anthony Davis is your number 2. Okay. So yeah, Anthony Davis is my number 3. Yeah, he suffers from similar things that Joel Embiid does, the injury concerns. If not, he would be probably not ranked higher. But I believe Joel Embiid's the better shooter overall than Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis is a better defender, versatility wise as well. So yeah, those two are not interchangeable, but they're pretty, similar players. Embiid and Anthony Davis.
At his peak of powers, he's an MVP candidate. He can be every year. Yes. The dude puts up ridiculous numbers. He's averaging 25.9, 12.5 rebounds, and almost 3 assists. And then let's not even get started on the block party that he had in the postseason at the early starts of it. So yeah, I got him at number 3, and number 4, I got Bam.
Yeah,
go
ahead.
Can I add to the Anthony Davis thing?
Yeah.
AD in New Orleans was not an MVP candidate, but he also went as far as Embiid. I think his versatility defensively, but then also the rebounding that's equal to Joel. I think the gap here is really just Davis has been more durable than Embiid in the playoffs. You know how weird that is to say. He had the 2020 run this year in these. He was so dominant. He made Ja Morant kind of look like a kid in the first rounds. Then in round 2, he didn't have a great. I think it was game 6 that they won. Or no, it was game 5 where he had the block on Steph or the save on Steph at the end. I don't think he had a perfect offensive series, but his defense was so phenomenal. Like that is something Joel Embiid has and never will do against a Steph Curry. And so I think for that reason, he earned the spot as the number 2 center this year. Played 56 games, free throw shooting back up to 78%. We're not going to see the three-pointer be at 38% again. But with what he can do as well on the glass, I know it's Jokic. He dominated him. AD's probably the second best rebounder in this group.
Yeah, Anthony Davis's greatness is personified. Played every playoff game this year, this season. My number 4, I agree with Justin, is Bam Adebayo. He's over my 5th guy simply because he has been so much more successful than this guy. His offense is not on the level of the 5th guy, but his defense is leaps and bounds ahead of it. He's a better passer, playmaker, in my opinion. So yeah, I've grown to absolutely love Bam Adebayo as one of my guys from the Heat culture. So Bam is my and he's honestly he showed that. I know, albeit the second half of Game 5 was pretty terrific. I think he was 1 for 7. Bam did show that if asked to, he can score the ball at a pretty good rate. He's obviously got some holes. The mid-range game is not what it should be. But yeah, he has taken steps forward, and I love Bam. Anyways, he's only like 25, 26 years old or something, so he's still got time to improve.
25.
And his free throw percentage, he's a great free throw shooter for a big man. I know he's undersized, but a big man.
Yeah, I was going to say that, undersized center, but Bam always shows up. He's been a part of 2 finals runs now for the Miami Heat. He's an all-star. He averaged 20 points per game this season, too. And that's just to think that scoring isn't really his focal point. So if he can add that element on the offensive end where he can, I think he can raise it up to a 25 points per game guy because he's skilled. He has very good skills. And if he knocks down the mid-range game, I think Bam could be a real problem because he already has it down packed on the defensive end. He's versatile enough to play at the 3-point line or in the paint as well. So
yeah,
I like that.
He's not a big bad guy. That's your cup of tea. The post game is disgusting, and the mid range game, as you guys talked about, waxes and wanes. But he's the most versatile defender in the sport. And if you put him at the power forward position, which I think is where he's most natural, this guy gets asked to guard the rim and the space at the same time. And I know he's a great defender, but no one can do that. And so with the fact he averages 20 a game and he's one of the 4 best passers at the entire position, it's a very safe pick here. At some point, this guy's getting an all-NBA team. 2-time All-Star, no defensive player of the year. It's funny how Spo's the best coach, no coach of the year. Bam's got 4 all-defensive teams.
He got all defense.
All 4 years he started.
Yeah.
Bam, arguably the best defender in the sport, has 0 depoys up until this point. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it's a good luck charm.
Yeah. Spo not having a coach of the year award is criminal. My number 5 guy that I was talking about, hinting at earlier, is Karl Anthony Towns. I believe he should be higher because his skill set says he should be higher, but he has not shown, and his actions have not. The quote just came out yesterday, I think it was. People, when I'm retired, will say I changed the game. You can speak all you want. You got to go put your ass on the court and do it. There's a reason Jimmy Butler, said some things and left the Minnesota Timberwolves. There's times where, and I heard one of his conversations where he was talking about one of the Jimmy Butler practices, and I don't know what it was, but it just rubbed me the wrong way, the way he was speaking about it, where he's like, people know about me. Like people, like I'm that dog. I got and it's like, I hear you saying it. I don't believe you. I don't feel it when you say it. So Cat should be higher. Cat should be in the conversation with AD, Jokic, and Embiid. He should be. His skill set says it. It's time to go out there and freaking do it, man. Like, go out there and play harder. There's the big thing on Cat. What is it? SAWFT. Soft. Go out there and prove it to us. Be that guy.
No, I didn't have Cat as a center because Rudy Gobert was playing center. But if we're gonna play the
I got
game,
them both ranked at centers, but
yeah. So
Me
if
too.
we're gonna play that game, then I'll throw him at 5 too because I wanted to put Cat on my list. So I'm with you. I think Cat is insanely skilled and hasn't even really reached his peak yet. Well, I hope he hasn't reached his peak yet because he's such a talented ball player that I'm waiting to see that next level with him in the Timberwolves.
Yeah, 40% career, well, actually 39.5% career 3-point shooter, 11 rebounds per game, was hurt for the entirety of this year, played just 29 games. But I was going to come in here and make fun of him for getting locked up by Aaron Gordon, but then Jimmy Butler did as well in the finals. So here's what I'll say. Cat is a phenomenal shooter, and his drive game opened up a lot for the Timberwolves, where a year ago they finished in the second half of 2022 as the best offense in the league. And he was one of the two best players alongside Ant-Man, 1A, 1B. But he has zero playoff resume, and he provides zero utility. He's one of the worst defenders at the position, and I've given him a lot, and I mean a lot. I've defended him a lot, but the word I'm looking for here is I've given him a lot of benefit of the doubt. Coming out of Kentucky, he was supposed to be a good one, but he can't protect the rim. He can't guard in space. He's not that quick off the ball. Like, he can blow by a center, but if you put an athletic 4 on him, he can't do anything off the dribble. He doesn't have much of a dribble drive game, kind of like Joel Embiid. And so a lot of his offense has to come out the post. And I think from a production perspective, I mean, the guy is a 2-time All-NBA player, 3-time All-Star. He's deserving to be in the top 5, but I don't think he's going to move any higher than this. I think he's personally peaked.
Yeah, that would be, if that's the case, John, that would be a massive disappointment for a guy who has got so much skill and talent. I know you speak about his shortcomings. I think his skill and talent is there to do those things. He's got to, hone in on the craft and become better in doing it. And if this is the peak, that's disappointing as hell. Number 6, Domantas Sabonis for me.
I had him 5, so we had Cat.
Yeah.
I've got a hot take here. Sabonis, much like Cat, is deserving to be at number 6.
Mm-hmm.
I actually have Brook Lopez.
Ooh.
Okay.
Would you like to talk about Brook?
Well, touch on Sabonis first. Give Sabonis his flowers.
Yeah. I mean, that's your guy now. You were hyping the Kings up. This is your guy, Sabonis.
Domantas this year changed the Kings' offense. They were the best in the NBA. In 2020, he did the same thing with the Pacers. They had one of the best offenses. In the bubble, he hasn't played due to surgery. They don't win a single game versus the Heat. From a playmaking perspective, in a Nikola Jokic-less world, Domantas is the best passer at the center position we've seen in decades, in a long time. He's also one of the best post scorers, shot 66% this year around the cup. And he was also playing through a fracture in his right thumb. Fortunately, he's left-handed. But here's the other thing, too. He grew defensively in certain parts of the year. Opponents in the past have had a lot of fun with him. But I think generally he's so good of a rebounder and led the league in rebounding this year as a whole that with the passing he provides, he can, unlike many of the guys we just talked about before, excluding Jokic, thrive as the second player or the third player in offense, because he doesn't need to score to dictate the flow of the game. Now, in the playoffs, the Golden State Warriors did a great job on him. But it's probably the best interior defense in the league, right? If he plays against any other team, I think he has a lot more success. And we've seen the mid-range jumper. It's pretty good. I think his right thumb injury did play some of a role this year in him being a reluctant shooter from mid-range. And so I'm going to cut him some slack. If it's a normal person like Brandon doing this, they have him at 6. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think, well, like I said, if it wasn't for Cat, I'd probably have him in the top 5. I think what he did for the Sacramento Kings offense, I don't know, did they finish as a top offense in the league?
The best of all time in offensive rating.
And a large part of that is due to him. So you got to give him his respect. Averaged 19 points a game, 12 boards also, and almost 10 assists, or 7 assists. But a near triple-double for the guy, for a center, is ridiculous. He's a 3-time All-Star. He's shown you that he can do it in Indiana, and he just stepped it up in Sacramento. So you got to give him his respect. Doesn't get talked about as much because doesn't play in the major market, but he's the real deal.
And also, there's a guy out there who's similar style, but is infinity times better. Yeah. So my number 7 is not Brook Lopez. It's Kristaps Porzingis. Porzingis is coming off of one of his career years, I guess. I'm looking at his numbers.
That was
right
his
now.
best year.
Yeah, it was 23 points, 8.5 boards, block and a half a game, 50% from the field, 38.5% from three, and 85% from the free throw line. I mean, we know Porzingis' game, and I think he really stepped up this season with the Washington Wizards. So I would have him at number 7. I know he's being talked about in some trade packages, a sign and trade mostly, because I think he's declining his player option because he sees that his value is going to be pretty high on the open market after his good year. So
you would think, but the reports that he's opted into the 36, and I don't know. You're right. He had the best year of his career. I had to watch a little bit more of him. Look, I have him as a power forward, but he played center this year. And I think if he's going to be included as a center, he's above Sabonis. I think he even has a case of being above Cat. Porzingis this year got back to his elite level as a rim protector. And while the Wizards' defense was slightly above average, around the average mark, he was a great shooter. And he averaged 23 points per game. Didn't make the All-NBA team. Only a one-time All-Star. And a lot of that's due to the injuries. But when you get 65 games out of KP, I think he's one of the most ideal complementary players in the league. Obviously, didn't work in Dallas for 3 different reasons. Wasn't a great fit with Luka Doncic, didn't have a large enough role in the offense, and ultimately, he got hurt a lot. But I think now that he's in Washington with a lot of the pressure off of him, it's no surprise he had his best year at 27. He's still improving, and if he can play 60 games a year, I think he should be above Cat personally because of the utility he brings as a defender and shooter.
Well, maybe it's something about the beard that's making him play better. But no, I believe it could be just the non-pressure environment. Him playing in Washington, it's a totally different world from playing in MSG and then playing in a high-pressured environment in Dallas because you're expected to contend for a big crown in the West. And in Washington, you're not expected to do much. So, just go out there and hoop. And that's what he did. I actually didn't have KP there. I actually had Rudy Gobert because I gave credit to a 3-time Defensive Player of the Year. I know we can, bash him all we want. And he really just gets a lot of hate in the media. He doesn't really get any more praise like he used to. But I think 3 Defensive Player of the Years have to count for something. And 1 year in Minnesota where it was down, I'm not going to hold that against him. Maybe a second year in the system might help him. So I had Rudy Gobert as my 7.
He was hurt this year.
Yeah, I'll be honest. Rudy Gobert is at the bottom of my list because he provides. I'm sorry. Like,
and bottom? Do you mean like the bottom of starters or the bottom of the upper echelon?
The bottom of starters. Yeah, because I just listen. I've spoken when you provide no offense for me. Hard for me to get up in that, especially in the, I mean, how many times have I heard that guys who just provide defense can't play on the court, and guys who just provide offense can't really play on the court unless you're playing at like a Steph Curry or Damian Lillard type level.
I agree with you, Brandon. But in the past, he's been a one-man defense, and when you look at
we're not talking past. We're talking next year, this past year as well. We're not talking a couple years ago. That's all I'm saying. This is not an all-time list. This is what's happening right now.
He's also coming off an injury-riddled year where he's in a new environment. I think you have to build around Rudy, and if the Timberwolves do that well, you're getting a top 7 player at the position pretty easily. Now, I would have Porzingis over him because Porzingis is, to use the word infinitely better offensively.
Yeah.
But I think Gobert this year, opponents still shot 4% worse at the rim. He was an elite rim protector. And I saw a lot of the backlash they got. It was kind of more directed at Karl Towns, his injury. I don't think Gobert is the reason they fell short this year. In fact, he defended Nikola Jokic better than Anthony Davis and Bam Adebayo.
Yeah. Which I said he was going to do. Yeah.
So I'm sorry, DeAndre Ayton, who I'm assuming you have ahead of him, he got pummeled by Jokic. There's no world where Ayton is better than Rudy Gobert. I'm sorry. And I think it's disrespectful to have him outside your top 10. At least your top 15, man.
No, he's not in my – he's number 12. He's not outside my top 15.
You said he was at the bottom of your starters list.
Well, that's where I should have – that's where my list ends is 12. I didn't go any further. Well, yeah, sorry about that. I should have specified.
I ranked like 45.
Yeah, I bet you did. I bet you did. My number – so we're on 8, right? Or 7? We're just on 7.
I just listed my 7th. So yeah,
you listed your 7th. My 7th was Kristaps Porzingis. John, did you list your 7th?
Oh, it would be Brook Lopez, who I didn't get to talk about before.
Go ahead, talk about Brook
Brook Lopez was a top 5 center this year. He was one of the best rim protectors in the sport. Opponent shot 7% worse the last 3 years when he's defending the rim. He should have won Defensive Player of the Year to me because, while Jaren averages more blocks, he's more disciplined and he's a better post defender. He's 7 feet tall, 280 pounds, but he can move a little bit too. There's the impression that Brook Lopez is a one-trick pony. He just blocks shots and spots up offensively. That's not true. In the games Giannis missed, he averaged 19 points per game. Think back to Game 5, Game 6, when Giannis did not play in the conference finals in 2021. It was Chris Middleton, Bobby Portis, and Brook Lopez, plus Drew Holiday, of course. But they were going to Lopez for instant offense in the low block, and he was giving Atlanta buckets. He's also a 35% three-point shooter, and he did that this year on volume. I think he shot a career high from three-point range. There's so much to Brook Lopez's game. I'm like, he's one of the most underrated players in the sport. He had his best year arguably at 35 years old, and the reason the Bucks crumble in the playoffs was not because of him or Middleton. It was because Giannis missed 13 free throws and fouled a three-point shooter in an elimination game at home. They lost by 2. And so I think at large, the Bucks defense, when Lopez missed all of 2022, they ranked 14th. This year he comes back, and they were right back at that level in all the years Lopez dominated. I think he's severely underrated, and he was the Bucks' second best player this year.
You want to know what, John? While you were talking there, giving your little soliloquy, gospel stuff right there, right? I've decided to put Brook Lopez at my number 8 spot. Okay. This guy, I've never seen anybody get more hype for Brook Lopez than probably his family. But yeah, so I don't need to speak on it anymore. John did a better job than I ever could. So yeah, Brook Lopez at number 8 for me.
I also have Brook Lopez at number 8. When we did our Defensive Player of the Year awards, and I gave mine to Brook Lopez, and I touched on a couple of the things that changed in his career, from him going as a predominantly paint guy, not the most fantastic defender, and then he just completely transformed his game from a guy that didn't have a jump shot to a deadly jump shot from the corner. The guy shot 37% from 3, 53% from the field. I mean, he's not dominating the boards like he used to, but he's not a spring chicken anymore. But he's still impacting the game on both phases, on the defense and on the offense. I think Brook Lopez has become one of those players that you can't hate the guy. He's just a very good ball player, and any team would be lucky to have him.
You know what's always like not even impressed me, just like one of the weirdest things to see is Brook Lopez drive the ball and him do like his Euro step or his 2 steps. It's just the weirdest thing because he got the longest legs and it's just so, and the way it almost looks like he always makes his shot too, because he's so much taller than the guy that's usually guarding him that he just sees right over them. He's like freaking 6 feet away from the rim. So he's like, okay, this is, Banks open, always open. So taking it. 10,000
points with the Nets. Fun fact. People always say he's the Nets all-time leading scorer. That's by 4 points. So it's a record he got while in the second half, literally the second half of his Nets tenure, he was in the trade block the entire time.
Who's number 2?
Buck Williams. He played back in the day, I think the 1980s, when they're just like a 5-6 year franchise.
Man, I gotta be honest, that's so depressing, dude, for the Nets. Like, just
yeah, but they got Mikal Bridges now, so obviously they're gonna be fun. Number 8 for me, I had Rudy Gobert, but I think we're on the 9 now, right?
Yeah, I think you're on 9. I'm on 9.
Yeah,
you can make a case here for a couple of different guys. I think this is the 3rd tier. You got tier 1. I'm sure it is right here. You got tier 2, which is actually 4 tiers. Tier 2 is Embiid it's Embiid and Davis, level-headed. Tier 3 is the 6 guys or the 5 guys we just named, with Gobert and Lopez being the end of it. I think the 4th tier starts with Miles Turner.
Who do you got, Justin, at 9?
Actually, this was a tough one. I'm just a really big fan of this guy. I got Jonas Valanciunas.
Okay.
I think he's tough. He's a versatile scorer. And it sucks that we didn't get to see him play on the floor too much with Zion. But when they are playing together, they were a 1 seed. I like him.
Yeah, Valanciunas is a little bit lower. For me, it's Vucevic. He was a number one guy in Orlando. I know that's not saying a lot, but and now he's in Chicago, but he's still a 17-11 guy. Not the best 3-point shooter, but for a guy who's 6'11", 7 feet, he can stretch the court. So yeah, that's what he's not going to give you much defensively, but like John said, we're talking lesser tier guys right now. So that's why I got Vucevic.
And for 2010, these two guys would be even higher. I think both have grown their games as 3-point shooters and rebounders too. The reason though they're not in that tier is just because defensively they're both terrible.
Yeah.
Especially Valanciunas, he can't move too well. But I think the case for Turner is that he's a two-way player. He's one of the best rim protectors, and I know he's not a defensive anchor like Brook Lopez, but he can man down the floor. And then offensively, 35% 3-point shooter. This year averaged a career high in points per game, rebounds, and free throw attempts per game. I think you're seeing Turner at just 26 years old. He was drafted in 2015 at 18 years old. He has been one of the more underrated players, underappreciated, because in his early years, it was marred by Paul George and the trade rumors. No one really paid much attention to Turner, but he's performed well in the playoffs too. And I think he could be kind of like the missing piece for a lot of teams out there that need rim protection and floor spacing. So he's overlooked.
So you guys broke up. I don't know if you guys were having connection issues. I was. Did you pick Vucevic? Because I heard you meant to pick the Bulls.
You were lagging a little bit. Me and John were doing fine. I had Vucevic at 9. John had
Miles
Turner at 9.
Okay.
And he was talking about his two-way versatility is why he has him ranked higher than what we have Vucevic and Valanciunas. Yeah. So number 10 for me is John. John mentioned his name earlier. I know he doesn't like the guy, but not the guy. He doesn't like the player, the guy on the court. The guy's probably perfectly fine. DeAndre Ayton. I do believe listen, he's on a winning team right now, and we know. I think we all know he's not in the right situation for the team and for himself. What they ask him to do or what they need from him, he cannot provide. What he provides is a 20-10 guy who's not going to give you much defensively. And I've spoken about this before. What he can provide is be on, name a shitty team, the Utah Jazz, the Washington Wizards. He can be on that team and he can get you 23 and 11 or whatever, right? They're not going to win. They're not going to win, but he's going to get you numbers, right?
They're going 25 games. He's averaged 25.
Yes. And that's why I have him here. Is he's a guy who can give you offensive effort, offensive scoring. Defensively, he's not going to give you shit. We've seen enough. I'm not going to even try and make that argument. So that's where I have him number 10, because he is a guy who I do believe can average 23 and 11 on a shitty team. But yeah,
on a shitty team. I want to add the reason Ayton is so unlikable is because he's wasted potential. He's a lot like Andre Drummond, and he provides zero rim pressure. He's the softest center I've ever seen, and he's got defensive tools. The guy can defend the post and in pick and roll. But opponents, they basically have runways to the rim. He's not a shot blocker, and he provides zero resistance. I think there's just something missing upstairs, and he's getting paid all the money too, so it's not going to improve. To be honest with you guys, I have Ayton at 14.
Yeah, he's. I will say this to the upstairs thing. I mean, when a guy like Devin Booker during a playoff game has to come to you and say, "What do you do? Do you want to win?" Like questioning your want to win. That's not a good look at all. I should never, as a teammate, should ever have to ask you and question your want and will to win. If I have to do that, we can't be on the same wavelength. We can't. So I 100% agree. I hear you guys. Yeah.
So who'd you have at 10, John?
This is funny because this guy also got pummeled in the playoffs, Jared Allen. Jared Allen's an all-star. He's one of the best defenders. The thing was he ended the season so poorly. In the same way Ayton got outplayed by Ivica Zubac, Jared Allen got thoroughly outplayed by Mitchell Robinson.
John, this is why I wanted to ask you. Would you not want to have Mitchell Robinson over Jared Allen then?
The reason I have Allen is because, while that 5-game series was ugly, he provides a little bit more in the post defensively, a little bit more durable, a little bit of a better, he can shoot it from mid-range. He's developed that. I also think he's a better rim protector too. He moves a little bit better because Robinson, when he came into the league, he was super mobile, but he's added a little bit of weight and then he's lost it. It feels like Robinson is a 20-minute per game guy, Whereas Jared Allen can man down the floor and he can anchor our defense. I truly believe we've seen with the Cavaliers this year, they were the best defense in the league. And a lot of that is because of Mobley. But without Jared Allen, the Cavaliers were not a top 5 defense. And so I would rather have him over Mitchell Robinson because I think he's a better anchor and he can play more minutes for me.
He's healthier too.
That's a great point John just hit on that. I don't think he was trying to make this point, but when ranking these players, we're not talking from a perspective of, like, let's say I'm the GM of the Milwaukee Bucks, John's the GM of the Pelicans, and Justin's the GM of the Rockets, right? Or whatever. Sorry to give you the worst team, Justin, but we're not talking from that perspective, because if we were talking from a team perspective, we would obviously rank these players in terms of fit. And some of these players, like a Jared Allen or a Rudy Gobert, probably would fit better than like a Valanciunas or a Vucevic or a DeAndre Ayton, because they provide something that we don't need from them. Like, unless you're wanting a Anthony Davis or a Jokic or a Embiid, because they can give you that offensive scoring as well. I just wanted to hit on that real quick. Go ahead, Justin.
So this one was tough, like deciding between 10, because I didn't have. I would love to go Mitchell Robinson at this point. So, and I didn't have KP listed at all, but I guess, this one's tough because I could go Jared Allen here because I have him on my list too, but I have him and Clint Capella next to each other. Now, I think Clint Capella, his shine has kind of dimmered a little bit because of the postseason. That postseason run where they got to the Eastern Conference Finals was incredible. But I think Clint Capella, he's one of the more perfect pick and roll centers in the NBA on both offense and defense. And the only thing is his game is really fitted because with a perfect point guard, and he has that with Trae Young that can feed him the ball, or Murray that can feed him the ball, and back then in his Houston days with James Harden. So I think his game is really reliant on somebody being able to feed him. But when he's at his peak of powers, I think Clint Capella is a dangerous player, man, on both defense and offense.
He manned the fort for that run by himself.
Yeah. So that wraps up our top 10 guys. So
well, I have to ramble about Nick Claxton now. I think Nick Claxton should be up here too.
Okay. I think that's enough rambling for Nick Claxton.